Imagine standing at the edge of a decision that could change everything. Perhaps it is a job interview, a first date, or the moment you finally confront a fear that has shadowed you for years. Your chest tightens, your stomach knots. Your mind begins a relentless litany of reasons why you should turn back, why this isn't the right time, why someone else might do it better. You feel the familiar tremor of uncertainty and insecurity crawling beneath your skin. And yet, all around you, life moves with a deceptive ease. People walking with purpose, faces radiating an effortless certainty that seems unattainable. In this moment, confidence feels like a distant planet, visible, bright, but impossibly far away. Most of us grow up believing that confidence is something we can acquire, a skill to be learned, a trait to be exhibited. Society tells us it is the loud voice in a meeting, the poised posture in a photograph, the unshakable smile in the face of criticism. We chase these external markers relentlessly, measuring ourselves against others who seem to move through life with a natural ease. We mimic their gestures, we rehearse their words, we polish our image until it gleams under the light of social expectation. And yet, in quiet moments, we know the truth. This is not confidence. This is performance. The paradox of confidence is that the more we chase it externally, the further it slips from our grasp. We measure ourselves against curated lives, against ideals that are not ours, and we conclude that something is broken within us. But what if we have been looking in the wrong place all along? What if confidence is not something to be gained from the outside world, but something to be uncovered within? At its core, confidence is not loud. It is quiet. It is not performance. It is presence. It is the ability to face uncertainty, fear, and doubt without losing the sense of yourself. And this is the truth that most people never learn. Confidence is not about proving to the world that you are capable. It is about proving to yourself that you are whole, even in the face of chaos. Psychologically, this misunderstanding has deep roots. Our minds are conditioned from childhood to seek approval, to avoid rejection, and to survive through caution rather than courage. We are told subtly and repeatedly that safety comes from fitting in, from following rules, from hiding our vulnerabilities. And so, when we are called to act, when the moment of potential growth arrives, fear rises as an instinctive response. Our inner critic whispers, "You are not ready. You are not enough. You will fail." It is a voice shaped by experience, by social pressure, by the countless small humiliations and disappointments we carry within. Philosophically, the same tension has haunted thinkers for centuries. The ancient Stoics argued that external circumstances are not the source of fear or strength. It is our judgment of them that shapes our experience. Carl Jung, centuries later, would describe the shadow, the hidden and often rejected parts of ourselves that influence our thoughts, emotions, and actions more than we realize. True confidence, he suggested, emerges not by suppressing fear or doubt, but by confronting the shadow, by embracing the totality of the self, even the parts we have long denied. Nietzsche echoed this idea in his call for self-overcoming, asserting that the individual who confronts and transforms themselves achieves a kind of strength that the world cannot give or take away. When we look at the lives of those we consider confident, we often see the polished surface, the poised posture, the decisive words, the apparent ease. What we do not see are the countless hours of reflection, the private battles with fear, the small acts of courage that no one witnessed. Confidence is a process, a quiet revolution within, not a public display. It grows in the shadows, in the spaces where the world is not watching, where failure is intimate and unglamorous, where you learn to stand firm despite trembling knees. In our modern culture, this illusion of confidence is amplified by social media, by the constant stream of curated lives and carefully staged moments. We compare ourselves to images, to snippets, to projections that are carefully crafted to appear effortless. The result is a creeping sense of inadequacy, a quiet panic that we are perpetually falling short. Yet what we fail to recognize is that confidence has never been about competing with others. It is about facing the unknown within ourselves and choosing to act anyway. Consider this. The person who seems unshakably confident is often not without fear. They simply have learned to acknowledge it, to move forward despite it. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the mastery of it. And mastery does not come from brute force, from pretending, or from ignoring the trembling voice inside. It comes from understanding, from reflection, and from the gradual cultivation of a relationship with yourself that is stronger than your fear. This internal understanding is what differentiates superficial self-assurance from transformative confidence. Superficial confidence is dependent on circumstance. It flourishes when conditions are favorable and collapses in adversity. Transformative confidence, by contrast, is rooted in self-knowledge, in alignment with your deepest values, and in the capacity to act despite uncertainty. It is the calm in the storm, the quiet voice that says, "I may not know the outcome, but I know who I am, and that is enough." The tension between illusion and reality, between the confidence we mimic and the confidence we cultivate, is what creates the cinematic landscape of this journey. It is the friction between the world we imagine we must inhabit and the inner truth we long to embody. Every act of hesitation, every moment of self-doubt, is a doorway to this deeper understanding. Every fear faced, every risk taken, is a step toward reclaiming a confidence that has always been within us, waiting beneath layers of conditioning and distraction. And so, as we stand on the edge of decision, as the chest tightens and the mind races, there is a moment of choice. The familiar instinct is to retreat, to wait, to avoid the discomfort. The unfamiliar, transformative path is to pause, to breathe, and to notice. This fear is not a signal to stop. It is a signal to step closer. In that pause, in that quiet recognition, the first glimmer of real confidence appears. Not the confidence of applause or approval, but the confidence of being present with yourself fully, without masks, without pretense, without denial. What if we begin to wonder, confidence is not something we build at all? What if it is something we uncover, like a hidden spring beneath the surface, waiting for the courage to dig deep enough to find it? What if the very fears, doubts, and uncertainties that have haunted us all our lives are, paradoxically, the very keys to unlocking it? This is the tension that frames the journey ahead. The tension between what we think confidence is and what it truly is. Between the loud, performative self and the quiet, steadfast self. Between fear that paralyzes and fear that teaches. Between illusion and reality. And it is here in this tension that the story of real confidence begins, not with action or strategy, but with awareness, reflection, and the courageous act of facing oneself honestly. What if confidence isn't something you build, but something you uncover? Confidence, in its truest form, does not reside in the applause of others, nor in the fleeting approval of the world. It is not measured by titles, accolades, or outward appearances. Rather, it emerges quietly from within, from a profound understanding of the self and the courageous act of embracing one's own complexity. To grasp this, we must first step into the psychological depths of the human mind, where fear, doubt, and shadow dwell, shaping our perception of reality far more than we imagine. Carl Jung, one of the most profound psychologists of the 20th century, introduced the concept of the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we reject, deny, or fail to recognize. These shadow aspects are not evil or weak. They are simply unconscious, hidden, and unacknowledged. Yet, their influence is immense. Every hesitation, every self-doubt, every moment we feel less than is often the shadow whispering its truths in disguise. Most people, when faced with fear or uncertainty, instinctively try to suppress these parts, to push them away or hide them from the world. And yet, Jung reminds us that true confidence can only emerge when we integrate the shadow, when we look directly at the parts of ourselves that we fear or dislike, and embrace them as pieces of a whole. It is here that we begin to see the difference between external bravado and internal strength. The world may celebrate those who are loud, decisive, and bold, but these are often the very people who have not confronted their own shadows. Their confidence is conditional, fragile, dependent on circumstance and perception. True confidence, the kind that transforms life, is forged in the interior landscape, in the quiet and often invisible work of self-acceptance and self-awareness. It is the kind of confidence that allows a person to face failure without self-destruction, to act in the face of uncertainty without paralysis, and to stand in their truth even when the world resists. Nietzsche called this process self-overcoming. He suggested that the greatest human achievement is not the accumulation of power over others, but the mastery of oneself. Confidence, therefore, is not about controlling the external world. It is about transforming the internal one. It is the recognition that the only true authority you can claim is over your own mind, your own actions, and your own values. When you begin to accept this, a subtle yet profound shift occurs. Fear no longer dictates your choices, doubt no longer silences your voice, and failure no longer diminishes your worth. Psychologically, fear operates through the brain's habit loops. Our minds are wired to anticipate danger, to avoid discomfort, and to seek familiarity. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that comfort equals safety, and that deviation equals risk. Every time we step outside this comfort zone, the mind interprets it as a threat, triggering self-doubt, hesitation, or even panic. But here lies the paradox. Confidence grows not in the absence of fear, but in the conscious engagement with it. Each time you face a moment of uncertainty, each time you step into discomfort deliberately, you expand the boundaries of your inner world. The fear remains, but it becomes smaller, more manageable, less controlling. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, offers a profound insight into this process. In his darkest moments, he observed that those who survived were not necessarily the strongest physically, nor the luckiest circumstantially, but the ones who found meaning beyond themselves. Confidence, in this light, is not about ego, bravado, or domination. It is about alignment, the alignment of action, purpose, and value. When your choices are guided by what matters deeply to you, when your life is tethered to meaning rather than mere survival, confidence arises naturally. It is no longer a performance to be maintained. It becomes a state of being steady and resilient, impervious to external validation. The contrast between internal and external worlds becomes even more pronounced in modern society. Social media, peer comparison, and curated lifestyles bombard us with ideals that are both seductive and unattainable. We are constantly measuring ourselves against images of perfection, unaware that these images are fragments, carefully selected to appear effortless. This creates a feedback loop of inadequacy. The more we compare, the less we trust ourselves. The less we trust ourselves, the less confident we feel. And the cycle continues. Philosophically, this is the illusion of external validation, the belief that confidence is a reward to be earned from the world rather than a discovery within. But when we shift the lens inward, everything changes. We begin to see that confidence is not fragile because the world is unpredictable. It is resilient precisely because it is grounded in something deeper than circumstance. It is the quiet assurance that no matter what happens outside, the self remains intact, coherent, and whole. It is the understanding that life will always be uncertain, that fear will always appear, but that our capacity to meet it, to navigate it, and to integrate it is limitless. Philosophically, this realization is transformative. Jung, Nietzsche, and Frankl converge in the same essential truth. The external world is transient, chaotic, and uncontrollable. The internal world, once understood and integrated, is enduring, harmonious, and sovereign. Confidence, therefore, is a measure not of external mastery, but of internal coherence. It is the capacity to act with clarity, courage, and integrity, regardless of the noise or opposition that exists outside. To illustrate this, imagine a person who has lived most of their life avoiding risk, avoiding discomfort, and avoiding confrontation with their own fears. They may appear timid, indecisive, or hesitant to others, yet internally, they are weighed down by the tension of unclaimed power, the shadow that waits patiently, urging acknowledgement. When they finally step into action, they may stumble, they may fail, they may feel exposed. But each of these small confrontations with fear chips away at the illusion that they are powerless. Each deliberate choice to engage rather than retreat expands the inner landscape of confidence, reshaping the narrative of the self. This is the rhythm of real confidence, a cycle of recognition, confrontation, integration, and alignment. Recognition of fear, confrontation with it through deliberate action, integration of what was previously denied, and alignment with one's values. Over time, these small, often invisible steps accumulate into a profound transformation. Fear becomes a guide, not a jailer. Doubt becomes information, not condemnation. Failure becomes feedback, not identity. And herein lies the cinematic tension of this exploration. The very obstacles we fear, the insecurities we despise, and the vulnerabilities we hide are not impediments to confidence. They are the raw material from which it is forged. Every shadow faced, every inner demon acknowledged, every moment of discomfort embraced becomes a brick in the foundation of transformative confidence. It is neither quick nor easy, yet it is inevitable for those willing to journey inward. As we move toward the next stage of this exploration, the key insight emerges. Confidence is not a skill to be learned in isolation, nor a mask to be worn for society. It is a state of being, cultivated through self-understanding, philosophical reflection, and deliberate action. It is the quiet, unshakable trust that arises when the self is acknowledged fully, including its fears, shadows, and contradictions. And so, we arrive at the threshold of transformation. The groundwork has been laid. The illusions of external confidence have been challenged. The psychological mechanisms of fear and doubt have been exposed, and the philosophical framework of self-overcoming has been illuminated. What remains is the practical and emotional alchemy of turning insight into lived experience, the step-by-step unfolding of a confidence that is both profound and lasting. The more you avoid fear, the larger it becomes. The more you face it, the smaller it grows, until one day you realize the monster was made of paper all along. Confidence, in its truest form, is not something we acquire overnight. It is not a trait that is bestowed upon us or earned by external accolades. Rather, it is a slow-burning transformation, a process of becoming that unfolds over time, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments of courage, honesty, and vulnerability. It is not something you build. It is something you uncover, something that is already within you, waiting to be recognized and embraced. At first, it may seem like nothing has changed. You may take a small step outside your comfort zone, a difficult conversation, a decision to say no, or a commitment to a new challenge, and nothing spectacular happens. The fear doesn't go away. The doubt doesn't vanish. You might still feel like an imposter, like you don't have what it takes. But this is where the subtlety of real transformation lies. Confidence is not an event. It is a rhythm, a dance between action and reflection, between fear and courage. And the more you practice it, the more you grow into it. In the beginning, you might feel as though the world is watching, that every failure is a public display of weakness, that every misstep will be scrutinized and judged. But slowly, the perspective begins to shift. The external world, with its gaze of judgment and comparison, becomes less important. You stop seeing yourself as an actor on a stage, trying to live up to expectations. You begin to see yourself as a person in the world, engaging with it on your own terms, without the need for validation. This shift is not easy. It requires confronting the voice inside that constantly whispers, "You're not good enough. You're not worthy. You will fail." It requires stepping into the unknown, into uncertainty, without the assurance of a safe landing. But with each step forward, something inside you begins to change. The voice of doubt grows quieter. The fear no longer paralyzes. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself, to trust that, no matter what happens, you will remain intact. You will be okay. It is in this trust, this quiet knowing, that real confidence emerges. Not in the absence of fear or doubt, but in the presence of them. You begin to understand that fear is not an enemy to be defeated. It is a guide, a messenger pointing you toward the areas in your life where growth is possible. It becomes less about avoiding discomfort and more about learning to walk through it with your head held high. This is the essence of confidence: the willingness to face uncertainty, to take risks, and to embrace vulnerability without the need for external approval. In the words of Viktor Frankl, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This is the crucible in which confidence is forged. It is the challenge to change our relationship with ourselves, to transform the way we respond to life's uncertainties, and to embrace our imperfections as part of our humanity. It is the acceptance that life is messy, unpredictable, and often beyond our control, but that we are capable of navigating it with grace, authenticity, and courage. As the transformation begins, there is a palpable shift in the way you engage with the world. You stop measuring yourself against others. You stop living for the approval of others. You begin to live for your own sense of truth, for the alignment of your actions with your values. Confidence at this stage becomes less about what you do and more about who you are. It is no longer a mask to wear, a performance to put on for others. It is an essence, a core quality that emanates from within, grounded in your deepest convictions. The process of building real confidence is, in many ways, like sculpting. At first, the shape is rough, unclear, and undefined. You make mistakes. You fall. You stumble. But slowly, with each effort, with each attempt to align your actions with your values, the form begins to emerge. It is not perfect. It is not flawless. But it is authentic. It is you, unvarnished and real, standing in your power, not because the world approves, but because you have learned to approve of yourself. There is a rhythm to this transformation: small action, followed by reflection, followed by more action. With each step forward, you grow. With each failure, you learn. With each success, you build trust in yourself. Over time, these moments begin to accumulate, creating a foundation of inner strength that is unshakable. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and how you are willing to show up in the world. This internal foundation, this steady core of confidence, is what allows you to navigate the complexities of life with grace. It is what allows you to take risks without fear of failure, to face challenges without retreating, and to stand firm in your beliefs even when the world challenges them. It is the confidence that arises not from the validation of others, but from the recognition that your worth is intrinsic, not earned or dependent on external circumstances. In this space, the world becomes your mirror, reflecting back the strength, resilience, and authenticity that you have cultivated within. You no longer seek validation from others because you no longer need it. Your confidence is not dependent on applause, on approval, or on accolades. It is dependent on your own sense of self, on your own alignment with your values and purpose. And when you begin to live from this place, the world responds in kind. You attract opportunities, relationships, and experiences that resonate with your authentic self, because you are no longer hiding, no longer pretending. You are simply being. But real confidence doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop with self-acceptance or self-approval. True confidence is not static. It is a dynamic, ever-evolving process of growth and self-discovery. As you continue to step into the unknown, as you continue to challenge yourself, your confidence will deepen. It will become less about the fear of failure and more about the excitement of possibility. It will become less about proving yourself to others and more about expressing yourself fully, in alignment with your deepest values. And in this process, you will experience what can only be described as a rebirth of the self. The person you were, the fearful, uncertain, self-doubting version of yourself, will begin to fade into the background. The person you are becoming, the confident, authentic, and courageous version of yourself, will begin to emerge. You will stop seeing yourself as a limited being, as someone who is defined by their past mistakes, their fears, and their doubts. You will begin to see yourself as a vast, limitless potential, capable of facing whatever challenges life throws your way. The transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to who you always were. It is about shedding the layers of fear, doubt, and self-limitation that you have accumulated over the years and reconnecting with the core of who you are. This is the rebirth of confidence, not the confidence of perfection, but the confidence of authenticity, the confidence of being unapologetically you.